the eye of Hurricane Milton making landfall as we start off tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. This is the latest. This is the latest radar loop out of Tampa Bay, and you can clearly see the circulation center now coming on shore. Looks like just south of downtown Tampa, and maybe over Sarasota or somewhere in between. We will. We're going to take it apart tonight, as we have with us our good Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast friend has joined us tonight. Meteorologist Bill Goodman from NWS Upton, and thank you, William. Always welcome us on the show. Good evening, Joe Rayo, and good evening to everybody on the chat board. So we should get started, shall we?
Yes.
Surely, yes,
All
yes.
right. So,
Oh, Shirley's going to be on here too?
yes, well, she's taking a break.
Surely, surely you jest.
Yes, I'm going to bring I'm going to bring the radar back up, and Bill, I know you've got you looking at some of the observations. What are your impressions of this at the moment?
All right. Well, I'll tell you that the observations, a lot of them I see, at least from the Tampa area, a lot of their winds are out of the north and northeast. So it looks like they may dodge a bullet as far as storm surge is concerned with the wind out of that direction. That said,
in Tampa,
yeah, I mean, that said, let's see. The strongest winds I see, Brooksville, I'm not sure where that is. They're gusting to 69 miles an hour. Let's see, a gust of 66 out of the northeast at St. Petersburg. Punta Gorda to the south, also gusting to 66 miles an hour. So, I mean, in terms of not at least the official observation sites, not seeing any sustained hurricane force winds. Plenty of sustained tropical storm force winds, especially north of the center, where those northeast winds kicked in. Is kind of expected that would happen with this, starting to get in the early phases of extratropical transition as it approached the coast.
well, we were talking before the show started that it is starting to look the way when tropical cyclones move up the East Coast and get once they start gaining enough latitude where all the heavy rains start to shift more to the west side, away from the east, and the stronger winds wind up going to the east side. I'm sorry, yeah, the rain on the west side and the stronger winds with less rain on the east side.
Exactly. I mean, this may be like a little bit different. I think there was some dry air that was getting into the circulation anyway, right?
You're right.
But the fact that there was a front nearby just sped that all up.
All right, I'm gonna go a little wider here so we could kind of get a perspective of what's going on in the whole state. Now, in the southern half of Florida,
And
okay,
I should also point out, just to interject, that Milton not only jogged a little more to the north, but also re-intensified by about a millibar or two between the last two recon passes. So even though we're talking about a Cat 3 storm now, we talked about last night how the storm tends to wobble, and also with eye wall replacement cycles and the intensification also varying, not a tremendous amount, but still varying. So these are all factors that we'll be watching as the storm makes its landfall finally in the next few hours along the west coast of Florida.
I'm going to eyeball. I brought up the recon, the recon that's there right now. So there was a fix they did at 10 minutes after 7 o'clock this evening. I'm just eyeballing it. I mean, it looks like it's around 950, 950, 951. But they got a flight level wind up almost to 120 knots, which is kind of interesting. So at least they're carrying it as 120 miles an hour. I mean, this is probably it's a low end Cat 3, I think. Now that it's just about on land.
Yes. Do they
Yeah.
have any info of like what semicircle those strongest winds were located?
No, this is the graphical representation. Let me see the plot. So on the plot, which is going to be on the screen, it's coming on the screen now. So they've got two pressure fixes. One was 954, and then another fix to the northeast of that, 955. So the first plot, just trying to follow this, the first plot came in from the northwest, and then they kind of went around in the southeast semicircle and came around to do the second fix. I'm trying to figure out from the wind barbs where that 120 would be, that salmon color. I'm not seeing it here. I'm just, like I said, I'm just eyeballing it off the graph, and it's actually a little difficult to eyeball. It looks like there's. It's hard to see. It because they've got the numbers, the pressure plots are right, and the actual centers are plotted, and they plotted it over a bunch of wind barbs, and I can't see what the color of the barbs are. So I'm gonna guess that maybe it was in the southeast semicircle.
All right. Yeah, I wonder how much of that with no precip in that semicircle. I wonder how much of that's getting down. Although certainly the eye wall to the north and west, that's into Tampa Bay right now from the latest radar that I see.
Uh,
Probably some very
speak,
strong winds there.
Speaking of which, just going back to the Tampa radar, Joe Rayo, 23 tornadoes according to SPC today.
We were speculating last night about the tornado possibility, and you and I both said that with this, in particular, this particular type of tropical system, the landfall and the passage across the Florida Peninsula, we were going to see not exactly an abundance of tornadic activity, but certainly we were going to see quite a few, not a few, tornado and funnel cloud sightings. And 23, that's pretty darn good, and that's or bad depending upon your viewpoint. And now, when we're waiting for the thing now to actually physically start moving right across the middle of the peninsula. There can only be more before this night is over, and sadly, that's probably where much of the real big damage is going to occur from this particular storm or from the tornadoes. You get a lot of those, and you end up with your home somewhere in the path of a storm with winds topping 150 or 200 miles an hour. I hope you have insurance because you're going to need it. And that plus, of course, the damaging winds and the heavy torrential rains and probably the millions who are going to be without power over the next 24 hours. So, as we said last night, Joe, regardless of the fact we knew that it was not going to be a Cat 5 when it made landfall tonight, but a Cat 3 certainly still is in the category of a major hurricane and will certainly be bad enough.
Hey, Bill, can you explain the process of what happened between yesterday and today? You talked about the fact that you're starting to see the first signs of transition to a post-tropical cyclone, or what we used to call an extratropical cyclone. Can you get into that? Because I think the folks at home and on the chat board would want to, would like to learn something, which would be great.
Yeah, this storm. It's funny. Even before we even thought this was going to become a hurricane, that's the Hurricane Center had been talking about a nearby front, and that introduced a lot of uncertainty into the forecast right away. I guess just the systems, the tropical systems, just with a front nearby, that really disrupts the whole. I guess it disrupts the whole process of allowing convection to form. In all quadrants around the center and really intensify. I think the other thing was, at least with this system, when it started to move, there was pretty good southwesterly shear that started taking its toll. And I guess that wouldn't be unusual for October. If we were in the heart of hurricane season, for a storm to be doing that this far south in Florida would be pretty unusual, but it wouldn't be unusual for something that would be up, getting close to our latitude. So wind, the vertical wind shear from like a nearby upper trough, you have that. This storm, there's always been a northeast fetch from way out over the Atlantic, I think, that was feeding into the northern portion of the storm, and it finally got close enough that it started to disrupt the inner core I guess the temperature difference, and even I guess the difference in wind, the convergence along the frontal boundary, all those things to kind of disrupt the whole process. That seems like you need like a pretty steady state process, low wind shear, no fronts nearby. These type of things, if you keep those things out of the picture, these things can kind of go to town on their own.
Well, we went from
Hope that
gales.
makes sense.
Yeah, we went from having gales out only about 60 miles from the center. I don't. Everybody was, and for good reason, focused on the strength, the Category 5, and all the rest of it. But when you looked at it in terms of the structure, it was really a very small, relatively small storm from the stand at when it reached its peak intensity, because hurricane force winds only went out about 20 miles from the center, and gales only went out about 50 to 60 miles. Because everybody sort of had, it's a hurricane. Oh my God, look how how big it is. It really wasn't all that big yesterday and the day before when it was on its way to maximum intensity.
No, it wasn't. But I mean, these storms do tend to grow as they move north. That's actually that there's actually some that just the circulation of any storm as it moves farther north tends to increase, regardless of whether it's a hurricane or a nor'easter. But I think the fact that you had that front nearby and an upper trough nearby, that helped. I think that helped accelerate the process. And that might be Joe Rayo. You had mentioned that the pressure had kind of evened out, maybe even dropped a little bit. That could be some of these baroclinic processes from the frontal system and the trough there. They may actually be helping it maintain its intensity now.
Quite possibly, yes. I would agree with that, Bill. And again, you sit there in front of your TV and you watch all of these reports from people who are actually in the path of danger, in the path of the storm, while everybody else is evacuating, and they're talking about all kinds of statistical information about the storm. And again, it really does not, at this point in time, it doesn't really matter. I mean, like that we're down two categories from a 5 to a 3. A 3 can do a lot of damage. And the one thing I was noticing, guys, is that tonight on ABC News and CBS, I didn't get a chance to flick on to see Lester Holt on NBC, but on CBS and ABC, they were interviewing people who said, "Yeah, I'm going to stay. I'm staying tonight." And they were told by the officials, if you plan to stay, please take a Sharpie or a magic marker and write your name, date of birth, and next of kin, in case we need to, in case we find you and need to advise your next of kin of your eventual fate. So there are people out there who are saying, I can get through this. I can do it. Let's hope that they didn't make a mistake, and hopefully we will not see anywhere near the fatalities that we have continued to see with Helene last week. This is just another case of people saying, I'm staying where I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. And it happens with every hurricane. Every hurricane that I could remember. There's always somebody who always says that. And unfortunately,
Well, eventually we're going to run out of people.
yes,
You know.
exactly.
The way it was
Well,
the whole setup with this was sort of weird too, because you had this old frontal boundary that was laying in the Gulf of Mexico. You had a lead wave that developed and went over Florida over the weekend with rain. And on the satellite loop, if you look on the far right, you could see that wave. The clouds, they're just getting ready to move off the edge of the screen. And then you had the hurricane. If you trace it back, uh, there was a tropical depression on the Pacific side of Mexico, south of the
mhm.
Bay of Campeche on the other side. It never developed into a tropical storm. It moved inland, and you could trace it back where it moved through that very narrow part of Mexico, and it moved into the Bay of Campeche. That ultimately became this system, became Milton, and I think the models were having a really difficult time because they were keying on this lead wave that was sort of going out and not really paying a whole lot of attention to lower pressures that were being left behind in the Southwest Gulf, and now you got this little tropical thing that comes out of the other side. And I remember actually seeing, one of those hurricane tracking model maps showing it crossing over, and the intensity guidance from that particular depression showed there were two models that actually made it a Category 5 in the long range out into the Gulf of Mexico.
There were, and I was kind of poo-pooing those at first, but boy, that Milton had ideas of its own.
What the fact that it would get to a Cat 5?
Yeah, that they got it that strong. I mean, all along, I still thought it had to cross the wake that was left by Helene, and it was going to start interacting with that front. I didn't think it would be a 4 or a 5 at landfall, but even before that, I was just little bit shocked, and I think the way that the models performed with Helene, they had that going to a 5, and it never quite. I think it stayed a 4. So I'm just calibrating. This time they were right.
The globals had a real tough time with the pressure with this thing.
Yeah, and the upper level low that has been over eastern Canada, it really was not a clean upper low. In other words, when I say a clean upper low, like circular, very symmetrical or whatever, rather we've been seeing with that system kind of like spokes of energy every day or two spiraling around that storm. And meantime, while all that is happening, you've got Milton working its way across Florida, and really no way to come northward. In fact, if anything, because of the fact that that upper system over northern New England, eastern Canada becomes maintained right on through into the start of this upcoming weekend, Milton, in spite of the fact that it is at one time a Category 5, once it goes across Florida and gets out into the Atlantic, sometimes you see storms that, re-intensify significantly when they get their feet wet again. But thanks primarily to the tremendous area of where this upper low over New England and eastern Canada, it just literally like latches on to what is left of Milton, and kind of like it absorbs or gets absorbed in that long wave trough as it moves east toward the eventually coming close to Bermuda, but certainly with not the potency that it had when it was down in that bathtub, if you will, that very warm Gulf of Mexico water.
I'm just pulling up I'm going to pull up the Jacksonville radar just to get a
Yeah,
different.
while you do that, earlier I'd seen an ob from Venice, 71 gust 85 miles an hour.
Wow. Rich Rothmansky on the chat board said Sarasota had a gust of 77. Here is from the Jacksonville perspective. We've got heavy rain that's actually moved up into southern Georgia, raining. Some really strong echoes have made it up to Valdosta and Waycross, also into southeast Georgia near the coast. Looks like there's some echoes aloft near Savannah. Some heavy rains just moved north of Jacksonville. Then there's another band that's rolling up the coast near St. Augustine, and then a break, and then another big band. This area here along the I-4 corridor is going to get hammered with heavy rain overnight.
Oh yeah.
Lots of flash flooding. And by the way, the 8 o'clock advisory is now in. The headline, gentlemen, reads Milton close to making landfall, which, by the way, is happening about 4 or 5 hours faster than what was being indicated earlier today. Milton close to making landfall along the coast of west central Florida. Life-threatening storm surge, damaging winds, flooding rains, etc., etc. 27.2 north, 82.8 west, or about 20 miles west-southwest of Sarasota, and 130 miles southwest of Orlando. They're still carrying a 120 mile per hour winds on the advisory, a pressure of 954 to 8 point. So we've gone up from this morning. It was 9:05 when I woke up this morning. and looked at the advisory. I think it was the 5 o'clock, the 5 a.m. advisory. So the pressure's risen to almost just about 50 millibars during the day
Hmm.
today. And they're carrying motion east northeast or 060 at 15 miles per hour. So this is going to take, a good 12 hours or so to cross the state from one side to the other.
It's interesting, Joe, in terms of, I was just looking at some of the products from NHC, National Hurricane Center, and they have the from 8 o'clock this evening to 8 o'clock on Friday, that 48-hour interval. They have the projection for the heaviest rain, not at the west coast of Florida, not even in central Florida, but they do have a little smudge, if you will, of red in the 12 to 16-inch category, and that would be for an area somewhere in the general vicinity. At least it looks, I'm just eyeballing it, but somewhere in the general vicinity of, it looks like Daytona Beach on the east coast of Florida.
I have
That's
I
where,
have it up on the screen.
yeah, that seems to be where they are, and then getting just offshore. That same 12 to 16-inch ISO Hyatt. Well, actually, it's not an ISO Hyatt. It's a contour. That deep shade of red with 12 to 16 inches. But I find it interesting that you know everything that we've been hearing about Tampa and Sarasota and Vero Beach and all those places, but the place that looks like it's being targeted right now by the Hurricane Center, or maybe this is actually a WPC uh, outlook in
Yeah,
terms of
this is WPC, and it should be noted too that this is valid from 8 p.m. tonight through 8 p.m. Friday.
Friday.
This is on top of whatever rain has already fallen.
Okay, but still 12 to 16 inches. That's in the next 48 hours. That's a pretty damn heavy amount.
No
Yeah.
doubt, no doubt. And this was updated. I'm just trying to see what time they did this. Oh, so
I
they
think
did
it's
this at 6:27 p.m. tonight. So this is a recent forecast
an
from
hour and a half ago.
WPC.
An hour and a half ago.
Right. As we all know that the WPC lurks in the background here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Right, Bill?
Oh, sometimes they send spies to come on. I wouldn't know anything about that though.
No, I'm sure you would. All right, SPC. We've got a couple of we've got tornado watches, ongoing tornado watches in Florida. So let's take a look at this. And this is from their.
Coin Ping, by the way, on the chat board, Coin Ping Pig is saying, but nothing in Georgia in terms of precipitation. Well, I mean, they've had already in portions of, and in fact, they're seeing right now in portions of southernmost Georgia, the outermost periphery of or effects of the storm, and that quickly is going to move offshore in the coming hours, and will leave Georgia pretty well dry. So, the place to concentrate on for heavy duty precip is near and right along the projected path of the storm from where it is right now, just offshore, straight across the central part of the Florida Peninsula, and then eventually out to sea on the other side, on the east.
SPC says isolated tornado threats expected to continue this evening, and they've highlighted this area from near where the landfall is and across central Florida, and then turning southward, uh, along the east coast of Florida, about halfway in down to Lake Okeechobee. They've got tornado watches up, uh, two working tornado watches, or is it three? It's hard to. It's two. It's just an odd shaped one that covers the area of landfall, then straight east across central Florida, and then goes down into southern Florida, like that other map showed. Then there's a second watch that continues over the Florida Keys. This is inside an enhanced area of severe weather risk, which SPC has. And the slight risk goes up to it goes up north of the I-4, Interstate 4, which for those of you who don't know is the thoroughfare that takes you from Tampa to Orlando. And they had a 10% tornado risk, and inside that 10% tornado risk, they were calling for a risk for EF3 or greater, which I don't know what transpired this afternoon in terms of all of the tornado activity that we saw, etc. I've never seen so many clustered tornado warnings like I saw this afternoon. I should have saved the image because it's not one you see very often. But SBC's been on top of this, as they usually are, and they still have some risk lingering for tomorrow. They got a very small area of marginal risk, probably for tomorrow morning, along the coast from, let's say, Daytona to, northward up to maybe just south of St. Augustine, where they have a small area of marginal risk and a smallish area of 2% tornado risk. So we're kind of going
Yeah,
through the worst of it now, I guess.
Joe, you do have that image. You sent that to me earlier, so it's in our
Oh, yeah.
Facebook chat.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Thank you for telling me that. I forgot all about it.
Well,
All right,
you don't forget something that looks like that. All these too many red polygons there.
yeah, I'll go and get it. Hang on a second. Uh, just a moment. Oh, thank you, Christina. Christinapedia just sent me clips of some live webcams. So let's see if I'll bring those up too.
Let's go, Brandon. Are you?
Does
Some of
your
his remarks,
organization
I'm
rely?
a little bit annoyed at. He's saying this storm is very disappointing. As I watched his
Disappointing.
live, and then he says, this will go down as the biggest hurricane blunder on record. I mean, what is he talking about? What is he rooting for this storm to kill a lot of people?
I would suspect that. Ask Brandon how old. Did I get the name right? It's Brandon.
Brandon, yeah.
How old are you, Brandon? Do you own a house? Do you have a mortgage? Do
Do
you
you
have
have anybody?
do you have children?
Yeah.
Just curious. Um, I'm just always, I wonder about these things. I
By
mean,
the way,
it
that
does
let's
sound.
go.
First of all,
That,
you have no idea what's going on down there. You're not there. Why don't you wait and see what the deal is with
I'm
respect
just
to.
about to break my. I'm about to just break, however briefly, my promise from 2 nights ago about not going political. But I just want to point out to those who are not aware, "Let's go, Brandon" is actually a code name for insulting the current president.
Yes, it is.
So,
Um,
so it sounds like
All
somebody
right.
with a
Well, let's go
shot.
Milton instead. Let's talk about that. Let's
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Quick save and a beauty there, Mr. Goodman. Thank you. Uh, here we go. I finally got that shot. So let me bring that up. Okay. Isn't it wonderful to be both talent and director and producer all at the same time? It's so much fun. But yeah, I mean, what I counted 12, out of this. I mean, you don't see that many. You don't see something like this too often. This was, and I got it. This is on my phone, which is why it looks the way it does. In fact, I'm trying to make it bigger. I'm actually making it smaller. That's weird. But there you have it. This was, I think, what time did I send that to you, Bill? About sometime about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock this afternoon.
might have been two. I was at work just coming out of a meeting. I think that's when you sent it to me.
Okay.
And
So,
again on the chat board, this Brandon fellow and now this guy Phil saying, "Thank God the storm is much weaker than it was last night." And I've been pounding my head against the wall to try to stress to all of you people that no, it's not going to become a category. It's not going to be a Category 5 when it makes landfall, but it will be at the west coast of Florida a Cat 3. You call that weak? You think that's not going to be all that bad? I want these guys to talk to all the people in the aftermath tomorrow night of all the people who are in the path of this thing, people who probably are going to lose their homes, people who are going to just and not have electricity for a very long time. Thank God the storm is much. Yes, I agree. It's somewhat weaker than it was 24 hours ago, and that's a good thing. But it's not weak in the sense that it's not going to be a very potent storm. It's still going to do a fair amount of damage, and it will be going down in Florida history when this is all over said and done as a disastrous cataclysmic type storm.
yeah, I'm just looking. The YouTube live streams on here. It's very hard to see because now it's nighttime. So I'm not going to put it up on the air because you really can't see it well. I mean, two of these places it's raining so hard that you can't really see much beyond the camera. There's a short shot where the water is coming over the beach now and pushing inland. Um, that's one thing that may, from we'll know about this more in the morning. That's one thing that might have saved this. This might be we'll have to see what kind of storm surge damage there is. But I believe that the original arrival time that was being forecast was more along the lines of midnight or 1 a.m., which was going to coincide with a high tide. So perhaps that it's coming in almost a good 4 to 6 hours faster. I mean, certainly would mean that it'd be more coming off the low tide cycle. That perhaps that might make the storm surge a little bit less. That it's hard.
Yeah, that would
It's
take a
very
couple
hard
of
to speculate this until you have to wait till morning to see what exactly you got.
that would take a couple of feet off. The variations between high and low tides are nothing like what we have up north. I think they're only about a couple of feet. So, but 2 feet, that's still for some areas. That's the difference between ankle slapping, minor flooding and knee deep. So it's still pretty significant.
By the way, it's uh, what did Rich Rothmansky just said with respect to the tornado warnings, and now I lost it. He actually had the number of tornado warnings that were issued today by the Tampa office, and now I can't find it. And I thought I saw a number, but I don't want to repeat it because it was a very big number, and I don't want it to be wrong. Rich, do me a favor, which if you would. Oh, here we go. I found it. 98 tornado warnings were issued by the Weather Service in Tampa, Melbourne, and Miami today. 98 tornado
Wow.
warnings. And here,
Unbelievable.
off the 5 o'clock advisory, the map that's on the screen is the forecast track, and inside the cone, as it is known. This was from 5 p.m., which is why you see the circle of that's offshore. It would represent the center. That's going to wind up moving to the northeast, straight across. Actually, maybe turn more east northeast over time if it hasn't already. And then offshore it goes. And after we take a look at the our friendly neighborhood GFS model, it does look like it'll probably be, maybe a minimal hurricane or a strong tropical storm when it goes out. And as you pointed out, Joe, it just basically, because of that deep trough that's going to be off of eastern Canada and probably a lot of dry air that sweeps out into the Atlantic, this thing is probably going to wind up weakening over time as it moves out to the east.
Right. We have seen cases over the years where storms have crossed over from the Gulf of Mexico into the Atlantic and have revved up again. It all depends upon the atmospheric setup, and in this particular setup, uh, that kind of scenario is simply not conducive to happen again because of the extensively large upper level low over northern New England and eastern Canada, which literally is going to it's like a longitudinal trough, if you will, stretching all the way down the coast, grabbing the upper level uh, entity of Milton, and just simply, as you point out, Joe, probably shoving a lot of dry air into the circulation and helping to kind of flatten Milton out. I mean, it still will be a potent storm, but it won't be a hurricane. It'll probably be a tropical system and translating into maybe an extratropical system as it passes by Bermuda. And considering that Bermuda over the years has had, you know, near direct hits by Cat 1 and Cat 2, and even I think Cat 3 hurricanes, they should be able to handle the remnants of Milton. It'll be more of a nuisance for them as opposed to what they're facing along the west coast of Florida tonight.
Brandon, not the Brandon that you were talking about, Joe, but our friend Brandon Doherty is on the who's also on the chat board, and he hit super chat tonight. Thank you, Brandon, most appreciated. Also, Burner Lady, hitting super chat, and save it till the end, Joe. He wants you to if you could speak about the solar flares and the impending auroral viewing. But just
Yes,
hold on to that.
I
And
will.
Paul Roman, thank you for the compliment, and also thank you very much for hitting the tip jar. Uh, the overall pattern, Bill, very interesting here. We're going into mid-October. We're heading up into the mid-October. We've got a really chilly looking air mass that's coming down here for the first part of next week.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. I guess probably some interior sections probably even see some of their first snow of the season with that.
In fact, I maybe change the GFS so that you could see the first snow. And indeed, it does have. I mean, you got to go north of I-90 and off the lakefront, maybe. But you've got a little blue up there, snow lovers, and the 540 thickness gets all the way down into North Carolina. In fact, I hesitate to say this because I hate when people do this, but when they say, well, my weather app says, but my weather app says that I'm going to see temperatures down near freezing on 2 nights next week here in the mountains of North Georgia.
Well, I will tell you that our friends over at NOAA's Climate Prediction Center has virtually the entire Northeast, right on down into the not into the Mid Atlantic.
Do you have that map up?
I can put it up. Yeah, if
Well,
you allow me, if you
well,
allow
you're
me.
always, Joe, you're always permitted to share. Bill, if you've got something you want to share, just knock yourself out.
I'm happy to just blab. I'm still a newbie when it comes to figuring out how to share stuff on Zoom.
Okay, well, I've got it. This is the risk of hazardous temperatures, which I'm going to make the assumption that the hazardous temperatures in question are not due to excessive heat, at least in this particular case. But you could see that there is a moderate zone which covers much of New York State, much of central New England, all the way down to down the western mountains of Maryland. I mean, North Carolina. I mean, the same places that got rammed by Helene last week are in this zone, and then they come back up into the eastern sections of the Ohio Valley, and there's a moderate risk of temperatures, low temperatures. I would presume that this would assume that there could be some frost or freeze advisories that are posted. This is for October 17th, so that is 1 week from tomorrow. A week from tomorrow, a moderate risk for unseasonably chilly, if not cold temperatures in this zone. And then just on the outside of this zone, there's only a slight risk, which covers central and west central Ohio, central sections of Kentucky, east central Tennessee, down into your neck of the woods, Joe. This is for northern sections of Georgia, northwestern South Carolina, and
I'm
a
sorry.
strip of west central
We're
North
just
Carolina
trying to keep it
and
lighthearted
central
here.
Virginia, all the way up to much of New Jersey, and including the immediate New York City metropolitan area and a good part of southern New England. That's not for the 17th. That would be for, well, yeah, it is. It is for the 17th and also for the 18th. So a week from Thursday and a week from Friday, according to this map, this risk of hazardous temperatures from the CPC, we may be looking at some downright chilly, if not downright cold
Hey,
temperatures, and
Joe,
maybe
do me a favor. Can you start just one second? Can you uh, release this for a minute?
sure.
Because I'm not seeing. I don't know why that is. Hang on a second. I'm going to give this a quick refresh. It should have picked up on. Okay. Uh, I'm going to fix this problem. All right. Now go ahead and go back to the map. Sorry
Oh,
about that,
okay.
folks.
All right. So as I said, those of you can see this now again. Um, so it would seem that next Thursday and Friday, not this Thursday and Friday, but next Thursday and Friday next week, 17th and 18th of October, we might be looking at a widespread area of the first uh, frost advisories or freeze advisories. I think, quite frankly, as the chillier air comes pouring in here Monday night and into Tuesday, that we're also going to have some gusty winds, and that probably would preclude the development of frost. It'll be cold, but it will be keeping the frost off the board. But when we get to, the middle and latter part of next week, as the winds die off and that cold air settles into this part of the country, watch out. That's when we don't want you to get caught with your plants down, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to bring in Cleopatra and Ophelia because they're very touchy when the temperature gets under 40. Those are my carnivorous plants that I
Yes.
have. I do have carnivorous plants, folks. I'm not joking. All right. Um, Uh, Bill, just on that subject, and then we'll do another hurricane check. Just on that subject, do you take any encouragement from the fact that we seem to be in this regime, according to Dr. Judah Cohen, of a very weak polar vortex right now, and we're getting cold fronts with big highs and shots of chilly air coming down during the month of October?
No, I take no refuge in that. I'm still in a summertime frame of mind. That's going to take a long time for me to get used to the idea.
Well, no, but I'm saying, but in terms of, because the snow lovers right now are hanging on every word you might say.
Ah, okay. So now you're really putting me on the spot.
Yes.
Uh, I don't know. It looked like it. If I did, I see my long range right. It looks like an upper. It looks like that doesn't last. Once we get to the third week of October, I think we got a big ridge building back over the eastern U.S. So
You're absolutely right, Bill. You're absolutely right in that sense because the folks at CPC, where they have on the 6 to 10 day outlook, our part of the country in a below normal pattern in terms of temperatures. In fact, the core of that is right over the southeastern United States. But when we get to the 8 to 14 day outlook, all of a sudden, boom, we see the temperatures start to rise. In fact, the below normal turns to near normal in the southeast, and we have above normal temperatures over Pennsylvania and much of New York State and New England. So, that having been said, maybe sometime around after we go through that cold spell, after about the 17th or 18th, late next week, we may see that ridge, as you mentioned, build and cause the temperatures to turn right around and go right back up again. So this may not be a protracted or prolonged period of cold weather. It'll be here for a few days, and then boom, we go right back into the warm up. Maybe just in time for not this weekend, obviously, but the following weekend, the 19th and 20th.
It does look, by the way, I was just running the 500 over the upper air 500 millibar map. This deep trough that's coming in now pulls out, and then another trough, of course, drops into the east, a big one for early next week, and that takes a little while to get out of the way. And that pulls out. You get a ridge that builds up off the southeast coast and a trough in the west, but it's this sort of fast-moving west to east pattern. The ridge in the east doesn't really last very long, and then you get this long wave trough that comes through around the 21st, 22nd, and that goes out, and then you start to get a little more ridging that builds in on both coasts with a little troughing in the middle. So it looks like it's a moving pattern. Um, it's been really dry though. I mean, since the beginning of September. What's it rained like on 2 days?
yeah, I think so. And I'll tell you that it rained at just the right time here on Long Island last Sunday. If it hadn't been for that, we would have had the driest, not this just the driest September on record at ISIP. It would have been the driest month there ever since records have been kept. So that was we dodged that one. Probably dodged a one of the driest months in the city as well. That last system, I think at the last minute it dumped about half to three-quarters of an inch of rain over that way. So
Right. In fact, um, this guy who's really into Central Park climatology, Rob Friedowitz, pointed out that through the 26th of September 2024, at Central Park appeared likely to become the third driest September on record, at only 0.36 inches of rain. However, from the 27th through the 29th, the outer bands of showers from the remnants of Hurricane Helene produced 1.22 inches of rain. And so, although the month was still, relatively speaking, a dry one, the driest since March of 2023, it ended up ranking only 23rd among all September. So it went from one of the driest all time Septembers to the 23rd driest. And by contrast, last September, how many of you remember this? 1 year ago in September 2023, 14.25 inches of rain, making it the second wettest September on record. That was 1 year ago, and here we are a year later with a much, much drier regime, almost one of the driest on records in the month of September. So,
Check
as the late
balance
Tex
the
Anderson
check
used to
the
say,
checkbook the checkbook is being balanced.
Yes, exactly. As Tex Antoine, who did the weather for many years on NBC and then later ABC here in New York on TV, used to say, "Do weather change?" And it certainly do.
I've got, Joe Gaffney. Thank you for sending this. So this is a screenshot of the radar from this afternoon when we had all those tornado warnings going on in the southern half of Florida. I mean, just away from the coast, it was just solid from north to south. See all the red boxes, and you can see also the green boxes, which were flash flood warnings. I'm going to give another check to the radar if I didn't get rid of it. But here's the Jacksonville radar, which we showed earlier. Just give another check. You can see the rain is pushed up rather far into. I mean, not all the way up, but it is
100
back to
miles,
about
ladies and gentlemen.
awesome. It is back to Valdosta and also along the coast, not quite to Savannah, but aloft. And then you still see those heavier bands. I'm going to go to let's go to Tampa, see what's going on
Gentlemen,
there.
I'm just gonna step out for a minute, a couple of minutes. I'll be right back. But you keep on trucking.
Um, okay. Uh, hold on just a second. Oh, it's TPB. My fault. That's what happens, Bill. When you get over 60, you start to lose it. Nope, that didn't work
What?
either.
What?
No,
What did I lose?
no, I lost it. I'm trying to hang on a sec. I'm trying to bring back the Tampa radar and what is it? TPW or
TBW.
TBW? That was my mistake. Okay, so let's try this again. OKX, and then I go to make it T B as in boy W.
Yep.
Can you pull up some obs, baby, and take a look and see what's going on? It looks like the center is inland now.
It's right on. Well, it's right on the coast. It's funny. Like if I mean, I'm looking at the multi radar. It looks like the bands with the eye wall, the eastern eye wall, are onshore. I think the center is just offshore near Sarasota. I guess if you
Gotcha.
look at the whole circular thing, you would say it was just in, but I think
Okay,
it's just
I'm
I think
back.
it's still
I'm
just
back.
offshore.
May I make an announcement?
You mean, are you going to say that the Mets are
Yes.
winning 4-1 or won four to
No, I'm going
one?
to say that the Mets are the division champions of the National League East. They 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 beat
Because
the
they
Phillies,
okay.
going
Um,
going to the National League Championship Series, one step away from the World Series.
right. So
There you go.
a lot they must be getting clobbered in that red zone of echoes in downtown Tampa right now. I
Yeah,
mean,
as a matter of fact, I looked a little earlier. St. Petersburg was 60 gusts to 81 out of the northeast. There was a buoy right in Tampa Bay, 57 gusts to 72. So that's some strong winds there. I'm starting to think that the strongest winds are going to be in that stuff on the backside when the after the eye makes landfall.
well, if it's making, if we're starting to see the first signs of extratropical transition, that would make a lot of sense.
It does. We see that a lot with transitioning systems up here, and just the radar presentation with the echoes, the way that they come down around the western part of the eye wall, it has that appearance of what we call a sting jet, where your strongest winds are probably going to be just I guess just west of the eye, where I guess where the echoes start to fade off. You get I guess from some of it's hard. You have descending air that's happening there in that on the backside of the storm. You have a little bit of evaporational cooling that's actually taking place there too. That combination helps bring those strong winds right to the surface. So I think there's going to be a big surprise along the Florida coast there in an hour or two.
Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda, Charlotte County is uh, south at 45, gusting to 59. We've got Darling NWR, RAWS, RAWS, west southwest at 29, gusting to 49. That's just outside Charlotte Harbor. And then I'm looking here further, Port Manistee near St. Petersburg. They are gusting to 73. Uh, just also, by the way, over Lake Okeechobee, they're gusting to 35 to 40 there from with a south wind. So, the folks on the North Shore of Lake Okeechobee might get some water coming over the top, because that's not the that lake every so often floods over in hurricanes.
Yeah, it's happened in the past. Yep.
I'm just kind of seeing. I see Augusta 62. This is back at the Punta Gorda station. Just looking further south, and there are a lot of obs that are not posting here. I'm trying
Oh,
to.
is that most recent? Because I see Punta Gorda, they gusted to 79 miles an hour in the regional weather roundup from Tampa.
Yeah, I'm using the Weather Service weather and hazards data viewer.
Okay, is that what
So
I'm
you
looking at?
usually that updates
Yeah.
fairly regular basis, especially with some of these stations that they have. The weather flow stations, of which I have one. I see a gusted inland gust here. So this is at San Carlos Park, uh, uh, Fire 54. So I guess it's a firehouse. They're gusting to 62, and they're actually a fair distance inland. I'm trying to see. There's no buoys that are reporting, which is not helpful. Here's one, Northport. 2 words. They are south southeast at 39, gusting to 69, and they're between Charlotte Harbor and Sarasota. And Sarasota itself, at the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport, they're east southeast at 33, gusting to 43. And I'm just trying to see if anybody's reporting heavy rain. Um, yeah, so the station Tampa International is 37, gusting to 64. Is that what you have?
That was Tampa, you said?
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm still looking down here, St. Petersburg. No, I don't see that. I think I just moved things. My display just updated.
Yeah, they're
Um,
northeast at 37, gusting to 64. There's
oh wait,
a
yeah, see, okay, I see that now.
Bay Point Middle School, which apparently sits right on the water in on the bay there. They're 32, gusting to 72. And here's an 81. Albert Whiteled Airport, and it looks like it's like the same general area there in Tampa Bay. Fifth northeast at 58, gusting to 81. I mean,
Yeah, I think that's St. Petersburg's airport.
you got to believe there's got to be a fair amount of wind damage here.
And that's what I've been talking about. Again, it's not, we're not going to be dealing with a Cat 5 storm. And it's so funny when people hear that it's down to a Cat 3. Oh, well, thank goodness for that. Oh, we don't have as much to worry about. And they don't understand. Sometimes I think maybe we shouldn't categorize storm systems or hurricanes. We just say go with the wind and the potential of what destruction may take place, because
Whatever we do, we will be wrong.
Yes, exactly.
Whatever we do, it's going to be a problem for somebody.
Especially the politicians. They'll probably always point fingers at the weather forecast. And that happened. You and I, Joe, remember this in 1985 with Hurricane Gloria, when Dr. Neil Frank, who did something very unique with that storm. Nobody had ever done this. He sat in a chair and he did one interview after another interview after another interview. He was on either radio or television constantly for 24/7. And in the end, the storm, which he was warning everybody, saying this is a very bad storm, we're going to have a lot of problems, I think, and the storm ended up not quite as bad. It weakened a little bit just before making landfall on Long Island. And people actually came after Neil Frank and said, "What'd you do? You got us all bent out of shape. Why did you tell us all this stuff that you've been telling about?" They were actually angry that the cataclysmic scenario that was being projected didn't happen. And I'm saying,
sorry. I'm
are you
sorry
upset about that? Did you want?
I'm sorry you didn't. I always I always tell people when they're I say, when they if they post and they get angry about it, and I say, I'm sorry you didn't get the tragedy you were hoping for. But you
Yeah,
know what?
exactly.
Be patient. One will come very soon.
Okay, now, Joe, it does look like the eye has probably made landfall near Venice.
Near Venice, Florida. Okay,
Yeah,
very good.
it had to wait. It had to wait for the Mets to win first.
Yeah.
Things have to be in their proper order.
Oh, naturally, naturally. Uh,
So, but I'll bet you the Hurricane Center doesn't say Venice. They're probably going to say it made landfall near Sarasota, right where the eye wall is, and not necessarily the center of the eye. I know with Helene, I was scratching my head. Why did they pick the landfall location that they did? And I think it's not necessarily going to be the center of the eye. It's going to be where the eye wall crosses the coast.
right. You're no, you're and it's and again going back to the storm surge. You're right. We're going to just have to wait to see what happens overnight on the because the wind's going to really howl from the northwest on the backside. And that's a problem on the Gulf Coast, with that wind because that just blows the water in.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait. Okay. 3 minutes ago. Okay. The Hurricane Center said makes landfall near Siesta Key.
Siesta Key. Okay. Boy, that's really specific. Any particular hotel on Siesta Key that it went over, just
I I
curious.
I don't know, but in that report, they also say a sustained wind of 78 miles an hour with a gust of 97 was recently reported
Wow.
at a NOAA station in Venice.
Wow.
77 miles an hour with a gust of 100 miles an hour at a weather flow station at Egmont Channel.
Well,
So there you go. Sustained wind of 67 miles an hour and a gust of 83 at a weather flow station at Skyway Fishing Pier. I'm not sure where that is.
it'll be interesting to see tomorrow morning because we're not going to stay live all night long with this. Any parting thoughts, Mr. Goodman?
Uh, we're not done. That's my parting thought.
We're not done.
No, I don't think we're done with the tropics by any stretch. And we were talking earlier about that upper ridge that's going to be over the east. And I love the term that Joe Bastardi coined for these things, that it's a ridge over troubled water, that you get when you have a
Well,
big ridge in the east. There's usually something lurking underneath it, and I think we're going to see yet another tropical storm or hurricane
well, the
in the Northwest
18,
Caribbean.
the GFS keeps wanting to spin something up out of what seems like this semi-permanent gyre that's been sitting over Central America back to South America, and it's every run does something different with it, but this particular run spins up another storm coming out of the Northwest Caribbean and going into the Gulf of Mexico in about 10 days. Uh,
Yeah,
probably starting out around day 6 or 7. I'll bring the map up to show everybody. I mean, this is there's no surprise here, only because of the fact that the model's been doing this for quite a while. The other models have shown hints of it too, so it's not really doing it by itself. But
agreed.
this is the latest uh, uh, the model run and how it handles it. But again, there's this sort of semi-pure. There's some sort of upper low, some sort of a gyre is I guess the best way to describe it. It spits out these disturbances, and here comes another one. This is on for next by next Thursday. It has a developing low in the south in the Western Caribbean, and then it takes it through the Yucatan Channel, and then starts to bring it up into the Gulf of Mexico, and then turns it straight east and moves it through the Florida states. Straits, Joe Rayo. We had that lady last night was asking about this storm. Says, can it turn straight east and go through between Cuba and Florida?
Right, right.
Well, maybe we should just have told her to wait 10 or 12 days, and the next one might do
She'll
that.
get she'll get one. She'll get one like that. Maybe.
Maybe.
A lot of things can happen in 10 or 12 days. We don't need to emphasize that. But I will point out that we're now up to what, 13 storms,
Yes.
13 named storms.
Yes.
They still have to get four more to hit the bottom end of their forecast for a very very active or unusually active hurricane season. So we're still four away. I don't know what is the average typically
14.
for 14.
14.
So we're right now we're still slightly below average.
Well, that's for
So
the
we
whole. That's through the end
right.
of November. I mean,
Right.
it's October 9.
45. We still have about another 45 or 50 days to work on this. So
So, Bill,
we'll see.
do we get to 17?
Where are we at right now?
13.
13. I think we're getting to 15 or 16 for sure. So that'd be close.
Okay. But we're not getting to 24.
Not unless something like really goes crazy somewhere in the Eastern Atlantic.
Not unless the government hurricane creation department goes to work. Are they authorized new overtime in the budget?
I'm not allowed to speak about that. So
Well, look, I'll just say this, and I think Joe Rayo will agree with me. Um, it's only a coincidence that the storm was supposed to make landfall after midnight or 1 a.m. or so, and it just happens to make landfall right during the time that the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast is on, which is Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. Um, I did not ask the Hurricane Controlling Society to, do that. Just saying. And I'm being sarcastic here, folks. I know
most definitely.
there's somebody out there that actually believes me, that actually believes what I just said. There is. They're watching this show right now, and they're saying, "You see, he just admitted it. He just admitted it. It's a deep
There's
state
already
thing."
a Twitter post about it. I know there is.
Oh, I'm constantly trending on Twitter. Joseph, do you have anything to add?
Well, I'll just quickly from the person on the chat board who was requesting information about
Oh,
the
yes, the solar flares with the birder lady.
Yeah, birder lady.
Our friend birder lady.
And I'm going to bring up here. This is a view from the. There's a spacecraft out there that has been monitoring the sun 24/7, called the SOHO, the Solar Observatory, Heliocentric Observatory. And this view that you're seeing right now, this is a very, very unusual view. First of all, the little white circle or ring that you see, that's where the sun is. Then there's a huge occulting disk which covers much of the inner part of the sun's corona, but sometimes you see the corona extending out much beyond that dark circle. Now, what you see is an eruption, another major, actually there's two major eruptions. There was one at about 10 o'clock last night, and you see, boom, what we call a CME, a coronal mass ejection. And there was a second eruption of another major flare, both of them near the middle of the sun, aimed directly at us here on the Earth. You see boom, and there's boom. There's a second surge there that happened a few hours ago. Now, all of those white speckles that you see, what are those? Those are solar protons from the Earth-directed coronal mass ejection that generates these speckles in the CCD detectors of the SOHO cameras. That indicates that this is a very, very energetic couple of solar flares that have directed their subatomic particles toward the Earth. And that is why the Space Environment Center in Colorado has indicated that for our part of the country, the middle latitude region, 40 degrees north latitude, there is now a 50% chance tonight and tomorrow night, or from anywhere from now through tonight and into and through tomorrow night, a 50% chance of a strong to severe geomagnetic storm, which may produce a spectacular display of the aurora borealis. So if the skies are clear later tonight, you may want to step outside, check the northern part of the sky to see if you see any unusual glows in the sky. If not tonight, maybe it'll happen tomorrow night. Unfortunately, it may also happen during the daytime, which means we won't see anything during the day tomorrow. Oh, that other thing that you see there, this big long streak, that is the comet that you may have been hearing about, and I've been talking about for the last few weeks. Comet Tushishan Atlas. Tushishan for Purple Mountain. That's the observatory in China, which made the initial detection of it back in January of last year, 2023. Atlas is the acronym for Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System. In other words, there are cameras, two in Hawaii, one in South Africa, one in Chile, and they're constantly watching the sky for any potential asteroid that may come precariously close to the Earth, maybe even on a collision course. But on occasion, and this is one of those occasions, it doesn't just get an asteroid, it captures a comet. And so it captured the same comet that the Purple Mountain Observatory in China saw almost 2 years ago. Now, this comet has rounded the sun, is now passing close to the sun in the sky. You can see how extensive it is. There's the head, there's the long tail. And I will tell you now, I will tell you true, if it is clear on Saturday night, and it should be, I think we're going to get into a clearing trend by late Saturday and clear sky Saturday night. If you go outside 45 minutes after sunset on Saturday and look toward the western sky, you will see the brightest and most spectacular comet since Hale-Bopp in 1997. Bright head, and as you can see, has a fairly sizable and bright tail of gas and dust. That is headed for the evening sky. And what's really going to be amazing, guys, is that because of the way that it's moving, this comet has been basically visible only in the southern hemisphere up until now. Now it's passing the sun, moving straight north. And so people who, let's say you have a house and you normally can look out toward the west at sunset, you've not seen anything in the western sky. All of a sudden on Saturday, this thing is going to dominate your field. And people are going to be out there on Saturday saying, what is that? It's a comet with a bright head, long tail, and that again is the comet Tushishan Atlas, which has been heading toward the sun, has rounded the sun a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, is now moving back out into space, and who knows? We may have not only a bright comet to look at on Saturday, but maybe tomorrow night or tonight or tomorrow night we may have a display of the aurora borealis or northern lights from this tremendous pair of flares on the sun that erupted, and it may produce that sky show for us over the next couple of nights. So, and you know what, guys? You know, the interesting thing is, a few hundred years ago, if you lived down, let's say, in Florida or the Southeast, after all of what has happened with these storms, with Helene and with Milton, you go through all of that, and then just a few nights later, you have a display of the aurora or northern lights, and then you see on Saturday a comet, which was always thought to be an omen, an evil omen. You know, superstitious people probably would say it's a sign. In the sky, there's somebody up there.
Now we have to consult with the comet, the comet creation department.
Yeah, the theologians or whatever.
'Cause
Anyway, that's for Birder Lady and for all people out there. That's what's happening celestially speaking. Potential northern lights and a bright comet coming in the nights to come.
Now, if you would release the screen. Thank you.
Yes.
And Bill, thanks for coming on tonight. Most appreciated. You had ice.
Sure, I had.
You had ice cream before the show. I don't.
Yeah, we must. That was dinner tonight. I'm a bad boy.
Yeah. I'm going to have a cigar after this show. So, Mr. Rayo, enjoy your victory. Who's next after the Phillies?
We don't know yet. It's either going to be the Dodgers or the Padres. If it's the Padres, then the Mets will be looking for retribution because, as you remember, 2 years ago, the Padres eliminated the Mets in the wild card round. So we'll see whether or not the Mets can get back at the Padres. And then if they win that round, they're on to the World Series. This is the most unlikely. I mean, nobody gave the Mets a chance during the summer. They were like 11 games below 500. They weren't going anywhere. And then all of a sudden, they had a ball game where they had the McDonald's character, the Grimace, throw out the first baseball, and a lot of Met fans have attributed their run to the Grimace. You see these people now. You see these people at Citi Field walking around dressed up like the Grimace from McDonald's, saying that that's their lucky charm. So
hey, whatever works.
I don't know what to tell you, but we'll see whether or not we'll be heading for the World Series. But first we got to get past whoever wins the Western Division. That'll either be the Padres or the Dodgers. We'll see.
All right.
No, that was great.
We'll
you said that like Joe. You said that like a true meteorologist. You were about to say they were 11 degrees out of first place.
Yeah. Well, with the wind chill factor, they'll seem like.
But it felt like right, exactly.
Well, like the heat index for them since then. Yeah.
We'll be back tomorrow night at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Thank you, all of you on the chat board, those of you watching in the background, those of you who liked the show with 122 likes. Thank you very much. And also for Birder Lady, Brandon Doherty, and Paul Roman, all hitting the tip jar tonight. Thank you very much indeed. So we'll see you tomorrow night, 7:35. Night night.
Good night,
Say
everybody, and thanks.
say
Night.
good night, boys. Everybody wave.
Good night, boys.
Good night.